Hey everyone, it's Louisa Munson from Feel Good Astrology, and I've got a show-stopping Feel Good conversation coming right up. My guest today is Siobhan Nicoalou, who is an author, a medium, metaphysician, master alchemist. I mean, she's an all-rounder, and we've just had this very amazing conversation where I've asked her about how she sort of came into her awareness and how she chose to use the skills that she's got. And the thing that I really like is the pace at which this conversation goes. So I'm going to leave it with you. I'm going to bring her on now so you can see for yourself. This is called Reclaiming the Light of the Soul. As I see it, this is an exploration of love. So let's bring her on, shall we? So it's my absolute pleasure and delight to bring on my guest now. And my guest is Siobhan Nicoalou. Siobhan, how are you? It's so nice to have you on the show finally.
Thank you so much. I'm doing great. It's a wonderful way to start the day.
Because it's quite early where you are, isn't it? It's
It
12
is.
o'clock today for me, but what time is it where you are?
It's 7 a.m., which is kind of, that's moving into the latter part of the morning for me. So, but it's
Okay.
good. Yeah.
Not too tragic then. That's good.
No.
But, I mean, isn't that that's one of the wonderful things I think about the internet is we can connect up with people in different time zones and all sorts of things. And that's kind of an interesting link because we're going to be talking about you today. This show is about you, and we've called it Reclaiming the Light of the Soul. And I want to ask you about your incredible skills because whilst we are connecting across time zones, you connect in with people in different dimensions, presumably, as somebody who's clairvoyant, clairaudient, and clairsentient.
Yes.
So what I'd like to ask you really is, what is it like to be somebody who is so open and able to tune in? And like, how did it all begin for you? Like, when did you realize that possibly you had something going on that not everybody taps into?
Well, it took me a long time to give it a title because when you're kind of just born this way and you have all these multidimensional experiences all the time with everything and all these physical manifestations and things like that as a result of not understanding yourself or being in an environment that understands you. It even took me till probably 10 to 12 years ago. I mean, I never even realized that I was a medium and a very powerful one. And I just never gave it a title. What is it like? Well, people, it's not easy to make friends.
Yeah.
They're too afraid. And then they read my book and then it's like, ah. But it is really my greatest gift. And it's taken me a while to be okay with it in myself, to know how to manage it and, be all right.
So it sounds like you had a life before coming into your powers fully, coming into the realization of who you really are. What were you doing before that?
Well, I was just living life. I had my first experience that I remember at 7 o'clock with something supernatural. Or 7 o'clock. Sorry, you're gonna have to edit that out. My first experience with my gifts was when I was 7 years old. And
you know what? I understood you when you said 7 o'clock. I was obviously tuning into you.
Thank you. We're mind melding already, you see. So this conversation could go anywhere.
That's what I'm hoping for.
That's why I make people sit in the back seat if I'm driving. I can't sit next to anybody when I'm driving, or we go on an adventure. So I was 7, and of course, being in a family that didn't, consider the times. That was a long time ago, and no consciousness in my family whatsoever. And so, that was the first time I knew. But then when I started to do this professionally, there was always an inner knowing I had. There was always an inside track I was privy to, but I always kept myself very close. I never talked about that kind of thing. And I was very quiet, actually. I was a big time observer in my younger days. And just lived a whole lot of life in some very interesting ways. And so I was married very young. and got out of that marriage pretty young and got married again. And so as I began to develop my gifts, it was at the end of my first marriage, and I just hit this threshold of, I had nothing to really compare my life to. It had always been a certain way. And I thought, gosh, if this is really the sum total of what this experience is all about, I'm out, and so I'm negotiating, right? I'm negotiating with God, going, all right, well, if this is the way it is, take me, because, I'm not going to take myself. So you got to make that happen. And, it's just got to get better from here. So I started to make changes, just opening that door to my, part of myself I had never opened the door to before, really started the whole snowball effect. And this happened in about 87, 88, when I got my wake up call. So life had been moving pretty fast and pretty dark up until that time, although it looked just perfect in society's eyes. And it's so funny how people run from me today. And I'm like, seriously? I mean, I was okay in your eyes back then. It says, it's so far out when you just realize that. So anyway, so life put me on the path. So as soon as I opened the door to spirituality, that's when everything started to open up in a whole bunch of different ways. It wasn't just spirituality, it was life, life and light as the way. So, and then I just, had different experiences and got credentialed in hypnotherapy. These were things that were all very powerful in my own healing. I worked with a very wonderful psychic. The first class I ever did. She's one of the old timers now. She's fabulous. And beyond that, then I learned how to channel. And so that was the first step in really opening the door even wider. And then I found the Golden Light tools, which taught me about how to reclaim the light of the soul, which is emotional energy. Okay, it's different. When someone channels, they split themselves off from the lower aspects of themselves to be a mouthpiece for higher consciousness. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I had a really good time channeling. I had a wonderful being aspect of myself named Octobar, which is the source of my joy. And it's just this whole evolution that took place. And so this is what my book is really all about. It's how I found love, which is the consciousness of love, how to make it conscious within myself, and how to reclaim the emotional energy. So that's what it's all about.
Wow, that sounds like a must-have for everybody's bookcase. When you I remember, when you go to a house of somebody who is on the path to sort of discovering who they are, there's a whole bunch of books that you expect almost on everybody's bookshelf, and yours sounds like it should be there with all the greats, because that sounds like a really important thing to be able to do, to be able to receive the love and integrate it without cutting off.
Yeah, it's really what we're here to really do. And it's just that there's just a lot of ways to get to the same thing, to get to wholeness, but there's a whole lot you have to reconfigure within your own head, because we are designed to be separate. So, emotional energy is part of the physical experience as you are conceived. We live in a world that's made of energy. Energy is everything, and everything is energy. And so as we come into form, that emotional body, or the soul we're referring to, is created simultaneously within the form. It's part of the physical experience. So people often believe the soul is something more than it is. It's way more than their experience of it, because the soul, until it's transformed, is nothing but emotional energy. And when you make the love conscious that you are within you, and then transform the division that the soul or emotional energy creates in your mind, in your heart, and in your perspective, that's when you begin to experience the soul as the light that it actually is. Up until that point, it's just like the physical body. People, in truth, the body is nothing but light. Science is finally catching up to proving that now. And so one can know that through all their spiritual books, but it's another thing to experience that. And so I've never read other people's spiritual books. I am not a thinker really like that at all. I don't get my information from there. Nothing, it's like taking someone else's experience and making it your own.
Yeah.
And trying to adapt this way of thinking so you can have great conversations and agree with everybody. But for me, it was about doing it organically. So when I was literally told that when I switched from channeling, that these aspects of myself wasn't put to me like that. It was put to me as something out here, was governing my information so I would learn that the information I was seeking outside was within me. I'm just like, because I don't really bite everything and take the hook, very easily. Resistance was my middle name for a long time. And it serves people. I don't judge it.
I think it does, yeah.
Yeah, it does. It helps people be more discerning. And so my whole purpose for that was to just prove to myself that what I was hearing was true for me. And that requires inner work. Right? It requires taking these tools one step at a time and then having a shift and then taking the next tool. And, it's like moving up the ladder of experience. And we often use this when we work with clients, that you can look at the whole cake, but if you try to eat that whole cake all at once, you are going to have a mouthful you can't control. You're going to choke on it. You can't break it down. You can't digest it. You're going to give you all kinds of issues that make you feel like everything, what do they call it? It's not victorious. It's opposite of victorious. You're going to feel defeated all the time. It's not going to be a positive experience because the knowing, it's that I have to know instead of you have to take that cake one slice at a time and enjoy that slice until it shifts. And I'll tell you, if you do that, your process of awakening will be a lot faster. And so,
yeah. In my experience, the feeling of overwhelm and overload it takes a long time to recover from it. So I think you're right, actually, to use discernment and to take things step by step. I'm much more like that as I get older. Of course, as a child, you're like, woohoo, let's go, let's dive right in. I'm really interested. You said we're designed to be separate. Could you just talk a little bit more about that? We're designed to be separate.
Yeah. I mean, we're in this game of duality, and duality is created by emotional energy that creates our perception of separation. The form, every way we're taught to think and view and experience is through the lens of duality. And so duality is the ultimate game here. And so
that sounds like the society we live in is designed to create that separation. Or is there something also in us being here, choosing to be playing the game of polarity?
We do.
So we choose to be here. And enter into this game, and then the game is definitely set up to polarize us more and more.
Yes. And so it's just about, when we decide to take on a form, we're automatically getting the emotional energy that creates itself within the form. So this negative emotional or positive emotional experiences is within the form. It's part of the physical experience. That's why as you reclaim the light of the soul, you subsequently transform the physical body as well. Because I have found for me, and this is over 30 years of being my own best client and student with this work, to come, I've arrived at these conclusions. This isn't something that I just agreed with, and these are things that I've experienced. And so yes, if you decide to take on form, then you're deciding to come into this perception of duality. And the only way to free yourself from it that I have found that is lasting is to learn what it's like and make the love that you are made of conscious within you. And as you do that which doesn't know itself to be the love that it is. That's why evil doesn't exist. That's the title of my book, The Absence of Evil, Love's Reclamation of the Soul. That your negative emotional energy doesn't realize that it's love. Yes. Because it's been divided, right? It's been taught that this is bad and this is good. And so you grow up pushing that away instead of being the presence of love that you really are, and to that which doesn't know itself to be the love that it is. And there's only one thing that I found that happens in the unwavering presence of love. It transforms.
Yeah. I was going to say transformation. Yeah.
Right. And, yeah, it transforms. And some of these little things within myself for sure took a lot longer of revisits of going down and just being that love and expressing the emotional energy that's within the physical body. That's the source of all disease. And so there have been several things within my physical body I have healed from that perspective, inner transformation. And so it's very powerful in the way of self-healing, which is what we are moving toward at a very rapid pace on this planet.
I agree. Yeah. And it's funny because people who, there are lots of people that believe that healing is something that takes place outside of yourself.
Absolutely.
That you go to the doctor for, and somebody else is the one that tells you what's wrong with you. And they're only talking about the physical, not the emotional. And there's no education really, or there's a lack of education that we can do it ourselves. And actually it all comes from us.
We have a course that we teach on self-healing, which is really great. And it's really wonderful because once you get the swing of it, you use it with other people. And as you're working with them, then you're helping guiding them through their own process of healing. You're not doing anything. And, there's nothing wrong with the modalities that people are using today. There's just not a lot of consciousness that accompanies it. It's not what are these things, these tuning forks that people use? Ding, 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 ding. There you go. It's temporary. It might work for a minute, but it has to be something that is lasting. And that was the big result for me. The thing that, the more I work with this energy and these tools, the more that they evolve through me. And so the processes from 20, 30 years ago are very different than they are today because we've moved so far along in it. And they do lead to your sovereignty. So you're being the source of your own prosperity, your own physical healing, your own emotional healing. It's a very powerful step. Love is the key. Duality is the door and love is the key. And, God or truth is the revelation. So there's something even on the other side of that door. But loving yourself is really important, to be completely authentic, well, as much as you possibly can, yeah. In this business and just with other people, being honest with yourself, self-awareness, all the things that these tools lend to help you reclaim. You just realize that you're here having the same experience, doing the same things, come up against a lot of the same things as other people do, but they're a lot more subtle. They become less and less and less of an issue. And therefore, as that energy of anger isn't vibrating in your aura like it used to, so you're not manifesting angry situations in your life. There's nothing for you to be in resonance with that's going to trigger you. It's not about denying it or medicating it, although we don't judge that either. We just feel it's a much longer way around. It's, choices people make. I really have a lot of compassion for them. So many people are so afraid that is the step they feel is okay. And, whatever they feel they need to do to feel better is all right. Not everybody's here to do this work.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. When you were talking there about the negative energies or emotions that we might push aside, the parts of us that maybe are our lowest expressions or our most fearful, hateful, bullying kind of things. I did have a question there. I don't know where it just disappeared to. I think I wanted to know, like, whilst it's possible to love it better, and to work with it, I have noticed in my life and around me, and it might be because there's a part of me that needs healing, obviously, that there are people who lash out when you love them or when you love yourself. There is that lashing out, like the fear or the hatred or the nasty bites back. It doesn't want the healing.
Correct.
And what can you do with that? Just continue to
leave it alone and don't judge it. The worst thing you can do is to look at something like that and judge it, because as soon as you judge it, this is how emotional energy works. If you judge it, it becomes part of your experience. If you're afraid of it, it becomes part of your experience. if you are anything, that's how it engages. It is a band of lower frequencies that feeds itself off of that band of energy.
Mm.
So if you're resonating with its anger in any way, it's going to get bigger, or, so there have been parts within myself that I saw that scare the bejesus out of people if they come across it in life. But I don't know, the love in me is much stronger than the darkness believes itself to be. And so it's not judging it in any way. It's not thinking about what you see either, or thinking about what you feel. It's about learning how we teach people how to manage their energy, how to be that love in all these circumstances. Vibrationally, it can't touch you. All these fascinations in the world of spirituality are baloney, as we're coming to find out. It's like all these ghosts and demons and all that, that's all emotional energy. It can all be transformed. And so the soul, if people love to play around with the soul, well, it's in its lower form. This is the experience people can have with it, is the emotional, like moving things around and all of that is just big deal. You want to impress me? Love yourself. That's harder. But
I love that. That's so true. It has to be the most courageous act. Right?
It is. It's just like, seriously. But anyway, there's people that they're at that level of their learning. So whatever. But it's like the Akashic records, and people for years, and people huge in the industry is all about the Akash. And I'm just like, no, that's your soul. That is the record of all your history. Well, when you decide you're going to take on form, and you come back into this world of duality as this emotional energy that is simply in your environment, in infusing the fetus as it's growing in the womb, and then has everything bang off of it when it's birth. It also draws back to its similar experiences from your soul that you left here before. Emotional energy, you leave it when you die. That's why the world is so clogged, because it is just this fog. We've created the emotional energy of the planet by not being willing to take personal responsibility for our pain and learn how to transform it, rather than projecting it out into society or using it to harm others. And so ghosts, and through my experience, we also do extreme cases in houses where there have been murders and suicides and meth labs and all kinds of real stuff like that, because there is a way that you have to deal with the consciousness that is those things that are dramatic examples of negative emotion. You can't be in resistance in any way. And so you use the same principles within yourself, and whatever shows up, it's just doesn't feel it's worthy of love, like the experience you said. It just shows up and it lashes out at you because you're becoming love, and it's just showing you its own levels of unworthiness and self-loathing.
Wow, that really speaks to me. That's perfect. Thank you so much.
Sure. Yeah. So it's all just emotional energy acting itself out, and emotional energy can only play off of what?
Emotions.
Energy and resonance with it. Exactly. And so as we're taught to blame the other guy and watch these, angry shows, or all these things of a lower nature, that we're hanging that vibration, we're amplifying it everywhere.
Yeah.
And so, it's just requires the presence of love, and consistently. And so it's not just a thought. Many people think love is just a thought, or it's just this frequency that you can use out here to be a healer. And it's like, there's nobody here that heals.
Actually,
God is the only healer.
What I hear when you were talking about love earlier, and talking about like tuning forks and whatnot, as you were saying that, I thought, actually, you need to become a tuning fork of love. Like let love like ring out of you, like vibrate out of you. Then you become a living tuning fork of love.
Yeah, if you don't make the love that you're made of conscious within you, You're going to have every once in a while an experience of love. This is why people go back to these workshops again and again and again. I call it spiritual bulimia, because they have to go, they're filled up and they go over there and then they throw it all up and they bring in the light. And then they're not doing this work within themselves to the degree that they become stable within that love.
Yeah.
And so that's okay too. Everybody's learning in their own way, but you have people that are literally holding this blanket of, this bubble, this umbrella of consciousness for these people while they continue to grow. But what happens if they're not really growing and that umbrella goes away? And then they don't know how to access what they have to go to somebody else.
Mm.
And so it's about being the love that we are, and we are made of that light. And like I say, we're only going to experience ourselves as the thought of love or love outside of ourselves shared with somebody else until we become the love that we are. And from that, the spirit arises from within that love. Love is a step. It's not the end.
Mm.
That's why Yeshua and Buddha and all these other love masters keep coming around, because humans don't get it. Yeah, it's
Yes.
It's okay. I didn't get it at one time either, but
I loved what you were saying about the sort of like spiritual community, and the fact that you have people going from one to another to another to another modality. I do see that, and actually the only workshops I've been to have been ones to train in something like therapy and NLP early days.
Mhm.
And I've avoided them because I find, if you go to one of these things, there can be the almost like the premise that we need to be fixed, that there's something wrong with us. And I always think that that's a very strange standpoint to put yourself in. I mean, you might believe that about yourself, but then to be in a room with loads of other people that want to be fixed as well, and it's like, oh my goodness. I find the best way for me to actually heal is to actually get some time on my own.
Yes.
I'm very, very conscious of the fact that my great adventures in life that have happened spontaneously on my own have always, I've had that kind of inner voice or that inner knowing, and life just all of a sudden it resets and it comes back into balance somehow. I find it very difficult to get my balance with loads of other people around me, which makes family life interesting.
Well, that's okay. That's your training ground right now, to learn how to be solid in who you are within the condition. And that's what we're all learning to do in different ways that our life presents that for ourselves. But yes, love doesn't care. It just loves.
Wow.
It doesn't decide, well, this is worth loving and that's worth loving. And it just freaking loves. It just is.
Yeah.
And so there's no division in that. And like you say, if you're seeing some part of you that is wrong or that is dark, and you're judging that as something being wrong with you, that's not it. That creates more division.
Yeah.
So you hit on a very good point there. There's everything. It's like, you have to know that there is nothing but love here. Keep telling yourself that. When you see something coming at you, though, there's nothing but love here. There are different declarations I help people with to create within their mental experience of things that come around to try to get them. Because it's, unconsciousness or that energy is always around. And you just, if it shows up somewhere, what are you going to do? It's always wanting to dance, going, hey, come on, we're over here. And you're just like, no thought about it.
Yeah.
We teach people how to be anchored in that love, how to transform the emotional body so they become that love and then live more from that love. And so there's ways to manage energy. There's ways to self-soothe or coach yourself with different declarations, but you have to make sure that you're in that consciousness before you make declarations to that which approaches you that doesn't know itself to be love. There's always this coming from that consciousness that makes the difference. And I feel that a lot of these energy tools in healing, from the outside in, they're wonderful, but they have to evolve. We love working with people. We work with psychologists, and other different people who want to use this consciousness, these tools in their practices. They can do this. And there's wonderful ways they can help their modalities evolve out of the separation consciousness, because we're getting there pretty quickly. It's just getting real, interesting for a lot of people. It's like, we don't have to create all of this to get there, guys. But that's okay. That'll be a lot of people's experience. So we like to refer to the master Yeshua, who of course was a healer. People call him, and he healed the sick. Well, he never saw them as sick, and in that they were healed. And so it's just the consciousness that has been ingrained in us, like through the church, to give to others in need. So we're always giving to their need rather than giving to the truth of who they are, which is their prosperity.
Yes.
So we keep that division going. And, and I really have still, I gotta admit, I still have, deep-seated issues with the church. I helped write the book that they are using now. And, so that's part of my own kosh. I'm just dealing with coming over. And it's really a passion for me, because it is an institution that could be changed to really suit the consciousness of the time and help a whole heck of a lot of people. That was what they created that church to kind of carry on. But so, yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, I've always been fascinated by religions. In fact, I chose to study religious studies and philosophy. But I've always also at the same time felt the need to kind of run away. I've always seen that they all have a common thread, a commonality. And as I was looking at it as a teenager, I would think, well, this is the same thing expressed through different lenses.
Yes.
And that was my truth of it. That's what my understanding was. And so when I hear this is how it is, and no, this is how it is, you must believe this. No. It makes me just want to run and hide. I understand a little bit of possibly why you might want to also like keep a little bit separate from people, with the amazing like ability to tune into so much. And also when you see all the kind of lies or polarity in the world, in particular with religion and politics and things like that.
Well, in truth, and none of that it's just you're watching emotional energy feed off of itself.
Yeah.
So I don't care about religion and politics and all of that. People literally are creating what they need to in order to grow. There is no such thing as anything moving in a backward direction. Everything is moving forward to the realization of this truth. They're just taking a really weird long way to get there. And, it's okay. There's some of us that came into this life to be awakened very early, to go through a heck of a lot in our younger years. I mean, gee whiz, I left home at 14, wow. There's a lot of, a lot to love, and make peace within myself. And, I've been cultured over these decades to be able to be in the great position now to help people of you're younger generation. You're the next generation. And so, to be able to help people get up to speed much quicker through all I have learned through the process of becoming the truth of who I am. And that's a continual thing. It never ends. We just learn how to love ourselves even more, and it gets easier all the time. So it's not about having a problem going out into the world. COVID hasn't helped anything really, right? But it's just about, well, let's put it this way. It's easier to be out in the world with people who know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And, when people try to get to know you or they want to support you, but if they did, their friends wouldn't understand. They can't really talk about you. It's like you're their own little source of healing, but nobody knows where that's coming from because they don't talk about it. It's funny. It's great though to watch people evolve. It's wonderful.
I mean, you hit on something quite interesting there, in the line of work and in the way that you are in the world, the way you show up. When people get healing, they often don't want to talk about what they've been through, and say, like if people have a psychologist or if they speak to people because they're stressed out, and people don't like to discuss those details. So it's very difficult, I think, to actually get your name out there if you're a competent coach or healer or somebody who's holds the space of love or whatever, however you show up. It's not always that easy to do. And
I'm definitely a coach.
Yeah. thank goodness for word of mouth and stuff. But we don't really get a fair crack of the whip in that respect, I have to say. It's
people are like, I would have to give them her web address, and then they see everything she does, and it might freak them out. It depends upon what people, really resonate with. I really enjoy working with the people who want this consciousness.
Yeah. And they find you, right?
They do. Yeah. And so I work with them on a weekly basis to help them with certain aspects of their lives. I'm a holistic coach, so it encompasses everything, spiritual, family, personal, business, all of it kind of goes together, because you can't just be one way. You're not just one way for one thing and one thing for another. These issues bleed over into every aspect of your life. And so, we have a lot of great ways we help people create stability and build from that foundation in a really wonderful way. Yeah.
You say we quite a lot. Is there a collective of you, or is it your company?
There's a collective of all of us. Yeah. And so when I was, working on myself and doing all this stuff, there was a point where you work with love to get to the consciousness that even gives love life. And that is this, spirit. So it gives love life. Without God, or, that love wouldn't even have life. And so I found that it naturally merged, it arrived from within the love that I've made conscious within me. And it is a collective that is we. It is not one thing, it is everything, which is what God consciousness is.
Yeah.
And so people go, ooh, that word. And I'm like, well, we'll call it what you want. Spirit is usually less, but people will interpret it as they are. But it is a different consciousness that has a totally different voice. And so it's we. As they've told me, you are one of us, which is the whole of who you are.
Yes.
That's one of our great sayings. So, and so it's we, because, here I am, the body, which is not separate from the consciousness. Most people experience it as that. The body is just going to die, but you can literally reclaim the body as the light that it is. And because I've been working to learn how to love myself and be the love that I am, and awaken the light within my physical body through the reclamation of my soul, it just happens as a result of that, because those two are formed together, work together to create what people call the normal human experience. And so love is what helps to dissolve the duality. That's why these masters have come again and again and again. People just think, I got to go to church to get that, or I've got to read a book to feel that. And it's about getting with the fact that you are that consciousness, making it come alive within you, and then working that in every divided situation.
Every divided situation. Yeah, that's perfect. It's interesting because like when we have an injury, or when we have a scar or a scab or something that's not quite right, we often call it my scab, my scar, my injury. And the moment we do that, we're separating ourselves from that thing that needs to be loved to be healed.
Yeah, it's like when you transform the pain within the soul, you don't have the same relationship with that anymore. It's like it's a moot point. The only reason I ever bring up anything from my past is that it helps as a teaching tool.
Yeah.
People look at my stories, and some people start to read the book and they go, I don't know about that. They'll close the book. It's a little too frightening. It's like, oh my God, this woman's completely schizophrenic, and I'm like, well, from a divided perspective, I could see how you would say that.
Yeah. I interviewed somebody recently who went through, was raised by a CIA cult leader.
And got them tricks up their sleeves. Wow.
Yeah. And to be able to cope with the abuse that she suffered, she created multiple personalities, and her life's work has been to reclaim, like, all of them, come back into integration. Yep. So I understand why you say that. That is such an intense process, right?
It wasn't separate. It was always there.
Yeah.
It was just how it showed up. Like, I got
Yeah.
married very young. And so my first husband was a really um, big reflection in that way, but I couldn't see it because I was so familiar with it that it just didn't seem like it was odd, right? It didn't seem like
Mm.
it was something that it was. And then in my second marriage was from a whole different perspective. It was a whole nother level since I had begun healing after the first one. Then this took me into a whole another level of healing. So I married this wonderful man. There was a whole lot of, I mean, they were all great men, right? But the reflection was profound. And so when you experience something, as you know, marriages and everything are your most intimate healing places if you still need to heal. And so,
Yeah.
not being able to have these conversations because they were from very conservative parts of life, it was the reflection in the inner work, the reflection in the inner work, the reflection in the inner work, until we just literally had to vibe out of that experience. And there were very important reasons why I did. So I did. And then with my third marriage, okay, mind you, I look back when I was 33 going, geez, I've been married every decade of my life.
It's like my husband has had a child in every point of his life from 20, 30, 40, 50.
Good going, mate. I mean, I'm standing there going, really? I'm only like 33 and I've been married 3 times and I'm just crack up at myself. And
that's quite impressive.
yeah, I'm like, I'm ready to go again, but it's been a long time since I've done that. And my last marriage, was over in 2002. So it's been a while, but it's been a whole nother reason why that's also happened. So it's all been good. But just really in the book, it goes through this because this is part of my finding, the golden light tools outside of channeling and what channeling did for me. And I was teaching channeling classes, which is pretty amazing. It's just another very old, familiar, tool we were taught so many thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. And it's making a big comeback now as people get really fascinated with extraterrestrials, and
can I ask, what are your views on extraterrestrials? Are they something that we're creating in our consciousness, or is this are there other societies out there or worlds?
Oh, of course. I mean, I believe we're not the only, if we're the only thing in creation, that's pretty sad. Humans are inadequate. No, they're not. They're just becoming who they are. Extraterrestrials is something I've been very familiar with my whole life, just because it's just been something I've always experienced in a positive way. It's something I never talked about. It's like very personal, and all of a sudden now this is a big deal. And now they got to, where do you think information comes from? It comes from, so many levels of it. It's just us being tuned to whatever frequency of information that we want to be aligned with. And so all I have to say to that, all we have to say to that is all love is light, but not all light is love.
Oh.
Could you
unpack that a bit more?
Yes. Because if you don't know what you're attuning to, you're just getting with the program because it's ET, it shows up in your experience and you think it's all cool. It may not have your best interest at heart. You have to be really adept at and trusting your feelings, knowing your source. And that's just a part of who you are anyway. So if you want to know the part of you that is extraterrestrial, then get in touch with the ET within you. There's nowhere to go. It's a consciousness, just like everything else. And within the infinite creations of consciousness, then, where are you going to land in that? So your negative emotion will, in the perpetuation of it in your mind, in your actions, in your words, in the way you live, and then using these spiritual tools to get in touch with something, what do you think you're going to be aligning up with?
Yeah.
That's really all that it is.
Don't go there until you've loved yourself so thoroughly that you're just going to bring through the most magnificent love.
Well, that's my choice. It's just the whole ET thing is fascinating because there are some huge presences that people are channeling through. I mean, immense presence. And through the humans that it's coming through instead of coming from, it is questionable to me because of the unhealed emotional body within them. So the message comes through, and and then it can also come through the ego way more readily, and it'll totally get by the channel. They'll deny it because they're so out of touch with their own self that they're not even aware that it's happening. And so a lot of ego plays itself out in that realm, and that's okay too. If you just want to be a mouthpiece, be a mouthpiece. It's helping people to a degree, but we ourselves are in the business of empowerment and sovereignty.
Yeah.
And I have found nothing more powerful for myself than to do all of the healing work that's required to own my own power and not be run by something else, because you are being run by something, whether you make that conscious or not.
Yeah.
And when you realize, I've had these beings that have worked with me in a way. They work with lots of people and just attach themselves to my solar plexus. And when I've made the decision not to be anymore, and I tend to get kind of fiery, it's like, okay, I'm not, it's almost like people don't want to be around you when they don't want to hear something. I'm not going to take what they're saying because they believe themselves to be absolutely right or true. And I'm not going to stop from being true to me in a situation like that. And it's almost, I can be very valuable to people who don't see their blind sides and helping them overcome them. But tends to be a lot of ego in these people that doesn't make them want to evolve out of the channeling that they're doing. So it's the white light. See, white light is about channeling. And in this dimension, it creates separation. That's why when we found golden light, it was the one thing that is the essence of everything in this dimension. So no matter what level, physical, emotional, or anything, it can move through it all and awaken love within it. And then spirit arises from within you, which is your source energy, which is what people are channeling through. But I choose, to be not blinded by myself as much as possible. But anyway, I literally have felt the entity that they are running literally rip itself out of my solar plexus. These things will get a hold of you and kind of influence you in a very big way. And so people have just be discerning about that. If you're working with somebody and they're helping you get through something, great. But, not everybody has, I don't think, these dramatic examples of what that's about. But that's how I learned how these things work.
Yeah.
So anyway, it sent me to the hospital. I was scared. I'm like, hey, I started bleeding, and I went to the hospital to see what was going on. Of course, there's nothing physically wrong.
Yes. Yes. And it's funny. I wonder if the rise in incidence of unexplained illnesses, has a route like that, where doctors run tests and say, there's nothing physically wrong with you. I've had loads like that myself.
Emotional energy is really what's causing it. And there's been large examples within my own life of dramatic examples, nothing wrong, but I'm aware of the emotion creating the condition. So I just keep going at it. Some of these emotional imprints take longer to heal than others. Yeah. And so it's just being willing to be the presence of love as often as you can throughout your day and be easy on yourself. We're all just doing what we know to do right now. And, just letting the pressure off. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with that guy over there. There's nothing wrong with anybody here. They're just taking the route they need to get where they're going. And the less we pay attention to what others are doing, the more fun we create for ourselves, the more we manifest people like you in our lives to have conversations with and have fun with, that we really have a greater, higher resonance with. I didn't look you up. You kind of just dropped into my experience. That's how my life works.
Yeah. I love that. It's wonderful how that happens.
Yes.
I feel like I want to ask more about the tools that you've got. So if people want to learn from you, they can do courses. You've got your book. Do you want to talk about maybe the first step to healing? Like if you were to help them?
Well, it depends upon the person, because everyone, of course, we just don't think about what to do until they arrive. Sometimes they'll give me glimpses about what this is supposed to be for them. There are more cases than not these days that when we begin to work with someone, we're to give them an activation. There are varying degrees and levels of activations to help open them up more to their experience. We teach the tools of grounding and how to stay anchored in the presence of your being, and not just in the knowing of the being in the mind, but it's there and always there. It's really the presence which illumines the whole spine and radiates out around you from there. It's how to stay in that presence as much as possible. That is an instant way we find to love yourself more now. It's just staying in the presence of that vibrational frequency, because everything that stays in it long enough has two choices. It's either going to transform or it's going to leave your experience altogether. In other words, if you've picked up something which people want to call spirit attachments, they're not really spirit attachments, they're souls. It's emotional energy. So spirits are highly evolved. Souls are what most people call spirits because they don't understand the language. But so if we're vibrating something lower for a long time, emotional energy, of course, catches up with you out front, because that's what the world is made of. And so it'll kind of resonate with you and then magnify to become larger in your experience. And then people want to push it out and call it separate, like a demon. Oh, this is my mother following me around and she's dead. And I'm like, no, that's the emotional energy that you and your mother have going on that you've never healed. And you're going to be dragging her around forever unless you learn to love yourself more.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny.
So doing that, do you?
So it's just a whole nother way we're being asked to evolve out of these old ways of viewing modalities, what's really going on. When you look at more of the science of it, it makes more sense to me. All things are energy, and energy are all things. So if you look at it from that standpoint, you can take mom off the hook, you can take dad off the hook, you can, it's not it's not what happened. It's how you felt about what happened. It's not what was said, it's how you felt about what was said. So if you just deal with how you feel and transform that without needing to go over the story in any way, you just take your power back in every way. You don't, if there is, believe me, the blame is a level of rage that you will find that is just within you. And if you give that part of yourself the opportunity to express itself while you're contained in the presence of your being, that energy, as all conflict begins and ends with you, from within you, it's manifested out in physical reality. I mean, emotional energy is the only reason we have war. It's the only reason we have poverty. It's the only reason we have everything like that. Look at you can throw something into the news, it's not even true, and 1 billion people will respond.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
React them all the time. And so that
very emotionally too.
Each other. So that's what we have going. We just have this energy war going on. People go, we're in this spiritual warfare. I'm like, it's inside of you attacking yourself. You're at war with this part of you that you haven't made peace with, and therefore you feel like, and sure, there are people in the world that play the games of the world with energy and moving it around and focusing it upon you and all that stuff. But, there's a few tricks we show people how to do that too. So that becomes their experience quite quickly without resistance, which, is what we teach is non-resistance. You can't push something back and not have it come back at you. So there are ways. So anyway, we work with people with usually lately, like I say, it's some level of an activation, and we teach people how to stay contained in their being. We work with people in mentorships weekly to help them get connected and learn how to stabilize within the being. So there are different things we have, tools that we have to teach them how to be more conscious of that being. More self-aware is what comes from being present. And
you've also got your book, The Absence of Evil, Love's Reclamation of the Soul.
Yes.
Such a fabulous title.
Thank you. Yeah.
So if somebody has been listening today and thinks, I really would love to work with Siobhan, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Well, you can email me at sovereignmastery@gmail.com. You can go to my website and look around first just to see everything is on the page. And so you can look at what's being offered now and kind of decide where you'd like to begin, and we can begin there. And so that's my name, SiobhanNicoalou.com.
Excellent. I'll make sure all of those details are in the show notes.
Yeah, great.
I feel like I've had so much of your time already, and I really appreciate the beauty, the eloquence, the passion behind what you're saying, because it comes out really clear and articulate. My final question is, if there was something that you would like to share with people right now that could make an instant difference in their life, what would that be?
Something I could share that would make it.
Like a final thought.
I have to think about that. Huh?
Like a final thought, maybe.
Let's see, a final thought. I should have rehearsed this. I think a final thought. What do you leave everybody with?
Yeah, it's got to be a showstopper, Siobhan. I mean, how do you top what you've already done? I mean, that's the tricky thing. I mean, you've given us quality information so far.
Thank you. I feel like I get away from myself a lot, but that's not uncommon.
Amazing.
You have the power. You just have to be willing.
Ooh. You have the power. You just have to be willing.
Yep.
Yes. Loving that. That is a showstopper, I think.
Thanks. It's the truth, though. You want to step up. We're ready for you. If not, yeah, that's the decision people are making right now. How they're going to move forward from this juncture on. They're either going to evolve or they're not.
I just want to ask you one more thing. Sorry.
Yes,
now
worries.
that you said that, what do you think is happening right now? I mean, my sense is that we are warring within ourselves, and it's being projected, like, as above, so below, in and out, etc. How do you see that resolving? Do you think, like, I mean, it's a crazy question, really, because we could be predicting things, and like time doesn't really exist in the way we think it does anyway, and it could all change anyway. But I'm just wondering, what are your senses about it?
Well, I feel that things are going to have to continue to get worse for a lot of people before they get better. There are, until people realize that fear is their motivating factor for pretty much every decision they make. Yes. There's not going to be a whole lot of progress forward for a whole lot of people. And, I don't put myself in that category because I'm not. Mm-hmm. And this is we have choices as to what we're going to vibrate within any condition. Mm. And so there will be people who will have to suffer a lot more until they wake up to realize that they don't have to suffer. I mean, there is no pollution in the sea if there weren't emotional energy vibrating in each one of us. To get people to do their own inner work, I tell you, the path that we show people is very uncomfortable for a lot of people. And because we will break down your ego. Mm. And it's uncomfortable to people who really aren't ready to hear it. Mm. But that's where the transformation happens. Everything that edges God out is your ego, whether it's a negative thought, whether it's a negative feeling, whether it's something you do in the world. And these are choices that people make. And so everybody, I just, say that you have the power if you're willing. And if you would like to really come to know the truth of who you are, we'd be happy to help you. I'm grateful I have the strength to deal with some of these folks, because when they come to me, sometimes they're really hard cases. Yeah. But they benefit and their lives change, and they stick with it.
Yes, and that's a testament to the amazing work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining me today. And do you feel up to coming back another time?
I would love to. Thank you so much for your time, your presence.
Oh, likewise. It's been amazing.
All right. Yeah, I'd love to come back anytime.
Well, that was a really great conversation, and I am absolutely delighted that Siobhan spoke with me today. I know that she's going to come back sometime because I've asked her. I asked her in private after, "Would you come back? Would you come back?" And she said yes. So that's great. We can delve into Siobhan's consciousness another time, and allow her to entertain us some more. I love what she was saying. I really love, you have the power. You have the power. You just need to be willing to use it. I love her approach. So if you are interested in working with her, she's described that there are activations that you can take part in. There's also the mentorship program she's got. She's also got her book, The Absence of Evil, Love's Reclamation of the Soul. I've popped all of those details in the show notes so that you can contact her directly, or even buy her book. I absolutely loved also, I don't want to lose all these little notes that I've written. Look, I've written so many different things. But I also really loved how she said, like, giving to someone's need rather than giving to their prosperity. I mean, that's so obvious, really, isn't it? Why don't we notice that? We've been really programmed to believe in scarcity, and in our impoverishment. And wow. So I'm going to turn my thinking around about that straight away. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this and you'd like to definitely see Siobhan again, but maybe see some of the other Feel Good Conversations, and please do subscribe if you haven't already. Also click the notification bell so that you know next time there's a new episode to listen into. I just want to thank you so much for being here, for your presence today, for your connection, for your friendship, for your support. These are co-created, even though these are pre-recorded. I think there is this kind of energy. There is this a kind of shared expectation now. And so when I'm doing these, I really feel like these are being co-created for everyone that watches them. So thank you so much. I really look forward to connecting in with you real soon. Anyway, take care. Bye for now.